Hi, and welcome to episode number 34 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. As always, I'm Sarah Senecroce and I'm your host, and I'm so happy that you're spending this time with me today. And today I'm talking to James, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Wasem, maybe? It's always like that with names. As a non-native English speaker, I'm like, is it Wasem or Wasem or anyways, I'm talking to James. But before I tell you about James, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about one of my services, kind of the sponsor of this episode, if you want. So I want to talk to you about my email coaching service. So this is a, business coaching for introverts, but it's email based. As a lot of introverts prefer email to phone calls or definitely to in-person meetings, because we can't even do those because we're too far away from each other. But we just like email, right? My husband always says, why don't you just pick up the phone and call the person? I'm like, no, but because then I can't prepare what am I going to say. And I'm not as, efficient or effective over the phone as I am via email. And I noticed that a lot of introverts are the same. So that's why personally I'm working with my coach. So she's helping me, and she has this great offer that is based on email, and it's her email coaching service. And I thought that's a great idea. Obviously she's another introvert, and I'm like, well, that's what I'm going to offer to my clients. And so I've set this up, and you can have a look at the offer at sarahsenecroce.com/coaching. Basically, it's one email per day, Monday to Thursday. So you can send me one email every day, and you can ask questions. I'll give you feedback on sales copy. I'll give you feedback on email automations, on, just kind of like, should I do this or should I do that? And give you guidance and motivation and feedback. So I'm really going to be your personal coach, but over email. But in addition to the email, I also do get on Skype or Zoom with my clients. We have one call per month. Sometimes clients prefer to cut it up into two smaller calls. But it's always nice still, even for introverts, to see each other and just kind of have a longer conversation about what it is that the person is working on at the moment. So if that's of any interest to you, just go on over to sarahsenecroce.com/coaching. But now let me introduce today's guest. James has been fascinated by sound and electricity from an early age. His love of music and technical gear made sound engineering and systems integration a natural pursuit. James has spent the last 20 years performing and touring in bands as a drummer, mixing live sound for churches, schools, and theaters, and working as an audio systems installer and designer. Though involved in highly technical fields, James has a passion for making things simple to understand and easy to use. It was from this passion that his books about live streaming and live sound education were born. James and his wife Kate live in the beautiful Rocky Mountains of Missoula, Montana. So go ahead and listen to our conversation, and make sure you listen all the way to the end, because James is sharing some really good tips for introverts who want to go and test live streaming. So the most common one right now is Facebook Live. So I kind of share my hesitations with Facebook Live, and then he gives some feedback on how to do this as an introvert, because obviously anything that's live is really scary for introverts. So enjoy our conversation. Hi, James. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for getting up so early for me. You just mentioned offline before we started recording that it's like, is it 5:30 a.m.?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay. So tell us what you told me before, why you're getting up so early.
Well, first of all, that's kind of the highly productive area or timing in my life. I tend to be a morning person, so that helps me get up and get started early. But my wife is also a baker, and so she has to be up early and get to the bakery. So I just make a point of getting up at the same time and get started with the day early.
That's nice. Yeah. I sometimes wish my husband was a baker because there's several benefits to that, getting up early being one, but then maybe she brings home some treats every now and then. So
I have more treats than I probably should.
Okay. Great. All right, James, besides the kind of official bio I read in the introduction, why don't you tell my audience, who you know are introverted entrepreneurs, about yourself, who you are, what you do, and something that they can relate to, you being a fellow introvert?
Sure. Yeah, my foray into business and being kind of a solopreneur and also involved in some different partnerships has been kind of interesting because of the introversion aspect of my life. And so I've made a point to really try to team up with folks that kind of can be public facing in some respects, but that doesn't always work out. And sometimes you find that it's best to do your own thing or try to fulfill your own vision. But I got started with an exposure to having a business and doing the entrepreneur thing from my father, who was an electrical contractor. And he ran his own business. And my first thought after leaving high school and getting out on my own was that I was never going to own my own business. And so I carried that with me for a few years, but one thing led to another. And eventually I went on to do a little bit of real estate investing, ended up getting involved in technology, running sound and doing video, and eventually started actually several different small businesses in the course of the last 15 years. So it's been an interesting journey in that respect. So never say never. And,
I'm curious, why were you so sure that you were never going to start your own business?
Having a front row seat to it, it just seemed too stressful, or maybe to my younger self, maybe it was just too much work. I don't know. That was kind of my initial factor.
Interesting. So you kind of idealized the 9-to-5 job because you saw it from your dad that that's definitely not what he was doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I idealized that. It was probably more of an immature comment than anything. But I very much had an aversion to selling or being out in front of people trying to make business go, even though my dad seemed to be good at it. I didn't inherit that gene, I don't think. So I've had to learn how to overcome that.
Right. So tell us about your different business adventures.
Yeah, so my two main ventures right now are in the live streaming space and in the sound system training space. And those came about through, my experience doing those types of projects. In the live streaming, I'm a co-founder of a live streaming website for musicians to help them stream and make money doing online performances. And that's kind of spun off into doing more custom integration and helping folks live stream on their own websites, whether that's doing ticketed events or pay-per-view type of things. And then the other site and business that I run is called the Great Sound Institute. And I've written a book called Great Church Sound, where I train volunteers how to operate sound systems. And it gives me an opportunity to share and to teach the experiences that I've had and to pass on that knowledge. And so I've built businesses in both of those categories, as well as some other offline stuff. But those are the main two that I've been working on over the past couple of years. Okay,
so are they mainly service-based, or do you also have, when you talk about training, are there any products that you're selling? Like I could, picture a video course, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So the live streaming site really is service based. There's a little bit of training in there, but it's not really a product you buy. It's a service that you use.
Mm-hmm.
And the live sound training, that is absolutely several different products. In fact, it started as just a book. And I then recorded the audio book and then ended up creating video training courses. I've got an email list and a Facebook group that I maintain. And then I've partnered up with other people in a similar space and co-produced training courses and materials and done some affiliate marketing and sales that way. So that's really taken on quite a large scope from just starting with a book, which I thought would be pretty simple, right? Just write a book and get it out there and start selling the book. Well, one thing leads to another, and you build this entire brand around it. And it becomes kind of its own entity that you need to maintain and grow.
So tell me again, the audience for that one, who's your main audience for that one?
Yeah, well, so my vision for the brand is bigger than the first niche audience, but I knew that if I was going to make it work, I needed to pick one very niche target audience. Mm-hmm. So that audience is volunteer church sound technicians. And so it's...
Talk about niched. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a big enough community that is, obviously needs that kind of knowledge that you're sharing with them. That's so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of was born out of my own pain point starting out early on in that field and teaching folks and not finding training resources. So it took me about 15 years to finally sit down and write the book that I dreamed about, but I wish I would have had that resource. So yeah, I really wanted to target that niche because it started off as a passion project and then grew into kind of the most viable business idea at the time and took off from there.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Well, let's switch gears a bit and talk about your introverted superpowers. What do you think is your biggest strength as an introverted entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think one of them is being able to see things from, a bird's eye view and drill down and to get to specific core reasons why something is or isn't working. Basically being able to assess a situation for any problems or any issues that other people might be missing. That makes me good at engineering types of tasks, whether that's in business type engineering or systems engineering and things of that nature. The challenge with that, of course, is that you can kind of get stuck in your own little world if you don't get out and integrate with the rest of the folks or your team around you. So one of the other strengths that I've been able to leverage is the ability to play with a team and try not to just be the lone ranger out there, out on my own all the time. So those two things probably combined are probably my biggest introverted superpower, being able to see things from a high level and drill down to specifics, and then to, work within a team when it's necessary.
So you kind of transformed your weakness into a strength. I love that. So how do you work with the team? Is this a virtual team or do you actually meet?
Sometimes it's a virtual setup. It really depends on the project. I do a lot of different project-based things, so it's not always a full-time endeavor. Sometimes it'll last for a few weeks or a month or two. Sometimes, I've done projects that have gone on multiple years with different clients and teams. So that's something that it really just depends. I tend to prefer kind of the short or medium term type of engagement. So, a month or 2 months is really nice. You get to know who you're working with or get to be part of that team dynamic. And then a lot of times these projects grow or they repeat some of their scope. And so you come back and work with the same people as time goes on. So that can be a nice way to integrate with a team.
Okay, cool. What about an aha moment? Take us to a story where, you just had this sudden realization or things just kind of started to make sense.
Yeah, that's actually been fairly recently, even though I've been in business, whether that's been working for others or working for myself. I've been doing this kind of on an independent level for a long time. And it's taken me a while to really feel like I'm hitting my stride. And so I'd say in the last year, really, I've finally started to embrace the aspect of owning my own brand, like putting my picture on my website or in my emails. That was a big hurdle for me, 2 or 3 years ago. And the web space has been changing so much, and everything is very personalized, and you almost feel like you have to overshare sometimes as an introvert. So I took the plunge and put my picture on my email signature, and I started a more public Facebook account and different things like that. And I realized that the sky didn't fall. I realized that I could still be myself and still fulfill that need. And more importantly, people were engaging with me in very meaningful ways. It wasn't the shallow type of engagement that I had maybe assumed early on. And so it's actually been a good aha moment for me to be able to do it in the scope of my own business where it really makes an impact, and then have that close contact and meaningful relationships with clients and customers.
Right.
That's been a great experience, actually.
That's very interesting that you say that, because I have the same kind of, feeling. Well, I've been using my picture on my brand for a long time, but I still don't share very often on Facebook. It just goes so much against who I am. And it's okay because I decided to specialize in LinkedIn. That's where my bread and butter is. I help clients getting clients on LinkedIn. So that's my main business. But I know that I still, should be visible on Facebook and share what I'm doing on the weekend and all things like that. And I just can't get myself to do it. I just feel like such a, I don't know what it is, but every time I'm like almost there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to share this picture. I'm like, really? Do I really have to show off my life every other day? So how do you deal with that? Do you actually share personal stories on Facebook, or is it somehow always business related?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I struggle with. Like you, like I go on to Facebook or Twitter and have to write something, and it just feels like I get paralyzed sometimes. I'm like, oh, I need to say it this way, but that doesn't work. And I need to say it. So next thing you know, a 2-second post is taking me 5 minutes. It's just not very productive. So yeah, I've definitely had to figure that out a little bit. A lot of times what I've found is that if I do more like long form writing, I can take snippets of some of that. Like if I express myself in a paragraph or a few paragraphs, typically there's something in there that I can take out and then post as a quote or as a kind of a teaser to something, and then link to a more long form blog post where I feel like I have time to express the full extent of my thought on the subject.
Okay.
So that can be one workaround. To be honest, I don't do a lot of personal posting, even on my own friends and family Facebook page, but I do schedule a lot of kind of technical and training material, and I link to a lot of helpful things and provide little insights here and there, but I tend to keep it within a niche that I really know and I'm comfortable with. And that helps me gauge how to communicate with my audience a lot better. So I'm not just put on the spot to have to be clever or funny or put some interesting personal tidbit out there.
Right. Okay. Sounds like you're really using it also still for business purposes, in not sharing, personal life stories every day, what you did and all of that. So
yeah,
that's also how I would use it. But I just see that others in the same kind of circles, they're trying to share so much more personal content because, yes, we do relate to humans, right? I get that. And that's what I tell my clients. But at the same time, it just doesn't come natural to me to keep sharing all my great moments, of my life.
Right, right. Yeah, you won't see me post pictures of food or vacations or things like that too often. Sometimes.
I know. Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a bit more about the live streaming. So tell us what your advice there and what you would tell my introverted audience about live streaming.
Yeah, that's definitely a great topic because live streaming definitely puts you front and center. If you're live streaming to your audience, that's your face, that's your product, whatever you're live streaming right there in front in real time. Mm-hmm. And so that can be a bit of a scary thing, especially if you've never performed or been on stage or done anything, very public like that. The important thing is that if you think you want to start live streaming, first of all, pick a platform that you already feel comfortable with. If you're already on Facebook, use Facebook Live. If you're already on Twitter, use Periscope. If you're on Instagram, there's Instagram Live now and some things like that. So that can be very helpful to just get started. It's a very low risk way to get started. People, if you watch live streams that are going on around social media channels, they are not high quality most of the time. So it's okay if you don't have perfect sound or perfect lighting or perfect video, and start small. Don't try to live stream this grand entrance of an event and expect it to go flawlessly if it's your first stream. Those are probably the two big things I see people mess up when they approach live streaming. And introverts, we're classic for overthinking some of those things and how we present ourselves, and we want it to be perfect a lot of times. But with live streaming and really most things, when you're doing business, you just need to get out there and try it and then adapt and shift and see where you best fit and where you work within that marketing space or that technology. So that's really my two big points for that. And after that, it's really honing into who your audience is, what they want from you, what they need from you, and really presenting the value that you have to give in a very clear way. A lot of live streaming can end up with just this, long running dialogue with no call to action. So that's kind of the third thing that I always like to talk about is have a call to action, have something meaningful that you share, and then give your audience a place to go to connect with you further, whether that's to sign up for your email list or to buy a product or to consume another service that you might have. You need to make sure and be very forthright about what you want me to do after I've watched the live stream. It doesn't always have to be super business related all the time, but it can help you present a framework that's reliable and predictable, and that also keeps your audience coming back. They don't get as bored, and they're always interested in what you have coming up next. So.
That already sounds scary, honestly, James, because, first you're like, okay, just, go out there and then you add value. And so as the introvert, I'm like, okay, gotta add value. So I have to prepare my script, right? So, because otherwise right. I'm just going to go blah. so because if you look at the live streamings that you see on Facebook, for example, not all of them add value. Some of them are just kind of like, oh, look where I am right now, and this is my backyard, and blah, blah, blah. And yes, I don't think they're valuable, but at the same time, they kind of create this bond with the person. Maybe if I'm already getting value, for example, from them via their newsletter or their blog posts. So would you say that maybe that's an option as well, to just kind of use live streams for the introvert who's kind of, scared to do all of those things? First of all, I have to be on camera. Second, it's live. Third, I have to add value. And then I have to have a call to action. Would you say maybe you could just go out there and test? So just so that for now, you're just testing the live streaming without already thinking, oh, I got to add value and call to action.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you first start, the important thing is to just get started and do some small live streaming episodes, even if it's just for 60 seconds.
Right.
You could, it's okay, even if your audience is small, to have a short live stream where you're just testing some things out. The other important thing that I like to try to do is, try to speak about or have a topic that you're very familiar with. That helps you be more free flow with your thoughts, so you're not stilted or trying to read notes or trying to really pay attention to the exact details.
Right.
If you know something really well, you're likely to be able to engage with that in a more natural way than trying to have this scripted type of response with live streaming.
Yeah, that's very true. I know that I'm in my comfort zone when I know the topic, and I'm not scared about thinking, oh, what do I say next, and all these things. So
Right.
it's probably a good tip to start with something. Yeah, give advice or talk about something you already know, and then maybe also just consider it as these short little videos where people get to see you live. I think that's important for introverts because you don't share pictures of you and your family and your dog and whatnot on Facebook. So maybe if you want to just start with Facebook Lives, just focus on being yourself, and that might already be a good start. And then as you get more comfortable, you can add topics and call to actions and all of that.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things. Don't try to be someone you're not. Don't try to emulate somebody that live streams all the time.
Right.
You and I both know people. In fact, I think we were introduced by one that live streams all the time, and I love his live streams, but I couldn't possibly pull that off all the time in my own Facebook group or wherever. I would need to practice that. I would need to try to do that in my own way, right? And it needs to be, your personality and who you are. And if you try to be someone you're not, you're going to get stressed out by it. Your audience is going to feel it. And it's just, you're going to stop doing it because it's not enjoyable.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, don't try to be funny if you're not funny. I
Right.
saw this one live stream, and I'm like, oh God, it just comes over as very fake if you're trying to be someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your advice on that. I hope that encouraged some of the listeners to start their own little live streamings. I've tested it myself, but I can't say that it's still difficult for me as well. So especially when I add all this pressure, I have to do this and I have to call. So for me right now, it's just literally just connecting with the audience. That's what I use it for.
And I think it's important to define where live streaming fits in your overall business strategy. Right. Don't use it just to use it unless it's fun for you. That's fine. But if you are using it for your business and you're making it an effort to do that, make sure you know where it fits within your strategy so that it's not just this dead end type of activity that you're doing.
Exactly.
And that can help give you more purpose as to why you're doing it and make you energized for trying it out in the first place.
Right. Great. Okay, let's go on to the next question, which is the 3 golden nuggets. I always like to ask my guests about some personal habits and internet resources and that kind of stuff. So why don't you share a personal habit that you think contributes to your success? Maybe it's the getting up early, but maybe you have another one as well.
Yeah, well, that is certainly one of them, is finding the time of day or the times in your day where you really have that energy level and you find that sweet spot to produce a lot of value in whatever it is you're doing. Mm-hmm. And for me, interestingly enough, that can change. Sometimes I find that early mornings are extremely useful. Other times I've seen that pattern shift a little bit where sometimes I'll do a lot better mid-morning or early afternoon. I also do a lot of writing. So sometimes the words do not come so easily. So, I'll struggle through and I'll definitely write what I need to write. But when I find a moment where the words are much easier, I try to leverage that and really dig in and let that flow a lot more. So one habit I've gotten into is to be less rigid with myself. And I know a lot of people think that they need to be more disciplined or more rigid with themselves. And I think there's a balance. And so one of the things I've done is try to pay attention to my natural habits and my ebb and flow of energy throughout the day and tap into those moments where I'm most leveraging what I've already got and just letting it go, free flow. So that's been an interesting transition for me over the last several years, but it's worked out pretty well.
It's really interesting because you read all these, habits and books about getting up early and this is your morning routine and stick to it and always the same. And so it's kind of refreshing to hear from you that doesn't always have to be the same. And, we have different cycles we go through and it's fine. So yeah, I like that idea. And I think some discipline is nice, but you can shift it as well. For me, I know that the summer months are just naturally a time where I want to be outside more. I don't have the same kind of motivation. And so at the beginning, I was struggling. I'm like, but I got to sit here and just do it. I'm like, well, no, I work hard during the rest of the year. So now I just want to go out and enjoy the summer months. They're so short in Switzerland. I'd rather take advantage of them.
Yeah, definitely. Don't beat yourself up too much. That's definitely something. My wife has helped me with that a lot, actually. So she kind of helps keep me balanced in that respect. Otherwise, I'd probably be working 18 hours a day. So
it's good to have that accountability partner, but also keep you accountable for taking the time off. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's very important. I mean, I find myself getting very fatigued or losing motivation if I don't get good downtime.
Exactly.
And whether that's reading for pleasure or going on walks or, literally, like you said, just kind of getting outside, it's okay to do that. And it's okay to have seasonal patterns. I think that's very healthy. That's what we see in nature all around us. So we're not exempt from that.
So true. Yeah. What about an internet tool or resource that you're using?
Yeah, for being in technology, I'm kind of a late adopter, which is a bit ironic because I'm doing things like live streaming or high-end video stuff and audio. But I was collaborating with a friend, and this is going to be an old tip for so many, but Evernote was something I avoided using for a long time. And I finally was able to collaborate with someone at their suggestion using Evernote. And it was a great way to build a course that we were creating. We were able to write things out and review each other's work, and it made it super seamless on multiple devices, whether that was a computer or phone or whatever. So that was actually something I've heard about for several years, but have never really dug into. So Evernote is one of those. I've been invited to a few different Slack communities, which have been helpful. Trello is another great collaboration tool. And I guess, it seems like there's a theme with these tools. And I think that's important for introverts, is to use tools that help you collaborate in a way that is effective and meaningful for you within that team framework. Because so easy, it's just too easy for us to be alone or isolated in our own little inbox. And sometimes getting out into some of these group or team organization sites can help give you more accountability, and it can help you just have a more fun engagement with the team around you.
Very true. Yeah. I've been using Evernote for a long time, but I still think I definitely underutilize it. There's so many things that you could be doing, and I'm sure I'm not doing yet. So it's always good to get the reminder and go back into it. And, there's so many automations I'm sure you can set up at Zapier or other tools like that would definitely kind of make you more efficient. So
yeah. And I'll share one other tool that's really helped me in the social media space is Post Planner. Because especially as an introvert, I'm not going to get online and try to come up with some social media post every single day. I've done that, and it's exhausting. Some people love it, but I'd rather try to pick the best posts I can once a month or every couple of weeks and put those out and schedule them. And so I've been able to use a service like Post Planner to very easily post to Twitter and Facebook and even the Facebook groups. And that's really saved me a lot of stress and anxiety of coming up with new material all the time. And so you can recycle posts that have worked for you. You can program things to go out to different accounts. And that's just been a huge time saver and anxiety reliever for me in terms of coming up with content.
Yeah, I use Post Planner too in combination with CoSchedule for my own blog posts. So yeah, definitely recommend it as well. I like the recycling because you just put it on a loop and it just keeps running. So I don't have to even think about, what am I going to post? And so I totally agree with that. What about a book that you would recommend to my community?
Yeah, there's probably several. One that actually inspired me when I was creating my first online course was Jeff Walker's Launch book. And he's just got a lot of great content and great ideas. And he's also very soft-spoken and very mellow. He's not this super high-energy salesman, go, go, go. You got to take it up, 1,000 notches and, super loud, whatever. That's great. And that can sometimes be inspiring. But I found his style of writing and also, some of the videos he does. If you're looking into doing YouTube videos or even live streaming, check out how Jeff Walker presents himself. He's not trying to be some crazy salesman. I don't know if he's an introvert or not, but he comes across as super genuine, very mellow, and very real to his audience. And that's something that I think we can all aspire to be, especially if we tend to be kind of the quieter types. So his launch book really helped me formulate my own launch plan, and it's helped me in other affiliate launches and things like that to understand the process. So I definitely recommend that if you're at all involved in creating online or offline products. I think it can be very helpful.
Great. I'll definitely look it up. I don't think I've read it. I'm not very good with titles. So I read so many books that sometimes I don't remember if I read it already, but I'll definitely look it up again and make sure I check him out also in videos and so on. Well, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing all your knowledge about live streaming and just sharing your story with my introverted audience. I always like to ask the last question, and that is what you're grateful for today or this week, James.
Yeah, honestly, right now, this week, I'm extremely grateful for just the great summertime weather and the ability to take advantage of it, to be healthy and to get out in the world and explore. That's honestly one of my favorite things right now, especially, is to get out and just have a little bit of fun and live life. And you don't have to work all day, every day, all the time. So
sounds like fun, and you're in the right area for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My one little interesting side note is my wife and I have been traveling for the last about 8 or 9 months, and we've been house sitting around the United States. And we ended up landing in Portland, Maine on the East Coast. And we decided to camp out here for a while. So we rented a furnished apartment. My wife got a job at a bakery she's been thinking about working for. And I've been doing my online business and doing some other independent contracting on the side. And we're kind of in our pre-kids gap year. We're probably going to be going back to Montana and setting down some roots back home and doing that. But we've taken really almost a full year to explore different areas of the country and the world. We've got an international trip planned as well. So we're managing businesses and doing all these things from the road, but still having a great time and being able to kind of cross some things off that bucket list, I guess.
Sounds like so much fun. I'm already in the phase with kids, so I'm kind of stuck where I am right now, but doesn't have to always be like that. My oldest is 14, so I give it another few years and he's probably going to be doing what you're doing, and then I get to do the same thing. So, yeah.
And times and seasons. I think that's the important lesson for this conversation. Maybe is pay attention to what makes sense and those seasonal aspects of your life and leverage that.
Exactly. This has been great. Thanks so much for this wonderful conversation, James.
Yeah, you bet. It's great to be here. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Make sure you go over to jameswasem.com/introvert. James has a free gift for you. It's his guide on how to avoid the 7 streaming sins. So make sure you get access to that so you can avoid embarrassment and other kind of bloopers on live streaming. So thanks so much for listening. As always, you can find this episode's show notes at sarahsandacroce.com/episode 34. You'll find all the links, the tools that James mentioned. And if you're listening to this show on a mobile device, make sure you click on the description of your podcasting aggregator and you'll actually find all the clickable links in there as well. And if you haven't downloaded your free books compilation yet, make sure you go to sarahsandacroce.com/books because my VA Mara has created this really beautiful compilation of the favorite 20 books of my past podcast guests. So these are all recommendations for introverts. They're not all introvert, kind of like books just for introverts, but just other introverts that recommended them, and I really recommend you download this compilation, and that gives you a nice reading list of books to add to your Kindle. So thanks so much for listening. This is Sarah Sandacroce signing off from the Introvert Biz Growth podcast. Remember, you need to use your unique introverted superpowers in order to make a difference. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.